What's up, everybody? I am Jeff Greer. Welcome into another episode of Floyd Streets Finest, a Louisville basketball podcast as part of the Field of 68 Media Network. We are having a great time so far. There's been so much great content from across the country, both nationally and a bunch of other podcasts similar to this one in other markets, North Carolina, Syracuse. Florida's had some great episodes already. There's been so many different ones, but of course, Kentucky and Indiana as well. If you want to check those out, highly recommend them. You can follow the Field of 68 on Twitter or on Instagram. You can find them and make sure that you stay up to date. But the best way to do that is to subscribe and download to our podcast. So go on to your podcasting platform, whatever it is, and search Floyd Streets Finest. Go to it, subscribe. Make sure you leave a rating and a review too. That's a great way for us to not only grow our fan base and our listener base, but also helps us bring even better content to you, expand our powers, so to speak, and just bring more awareness to us. This episode is an awesome one. I'm so excited for this guest. We've already had Carlik Jones, Malik Williams, and Chris Mack on Floyd Streets Finest. And now we're going to take a dip into some nostalgia, some Louisville basketball nostalgia with this next conversation. And I got to tell you, perfect timing to have this guest on. It's Peyton Siva, of course, of college basketball fame here in Louisville for winning the 2013 national title, going to the Final Four in 2012. But the guy has also had a great European career. He's been in Berlin now for 4 years playing in EuroLeague, which is the top tier of basketball in Europe. And because of that experience, we can talk to Peyton not only about his Louisville times. Of course, we get into Rick Pitino and Russ Smith and his chances to watch the current team. But it also gives us the great opportunity to talk to him about some of the guys who were picked in the recent NBA draft, who have come out of the EuroLeague ranks: Deni Avdija, Theo Maledon, Leandro Bolmaro, I want to make sure I pronounce that correctly, and Killian Hayes, who did not play in the EuroLeague but played in Germany and went toe-to-toe with Peyton Siva as well. So Peyton has some great insight into all of those things, and I want to make sure I pump his podcast. We'll mention it too in our conversation, but make sure you give his podcast a subscribe and download as well. It's called Ball Around the World, and it's a co-host with Tony Gaffney, who has played a long time in Europe and played college ball in the U.S. at UMass. Is a New Englander, so I appreciate his accent, and we'll get into that with Peyton a little bit. So many great anecdotes from Peyton today, so I highly recommend you listen to this bad boy all the way through. But again, rate and review our podcast wherever you get them, and please enjoy this latest episode of Floyd Streets Finest featuring Peyton Siva. All right, we are joined here by Peyton Siva, and it looks like we've got another guest here in the corner. Introduce us here, Peyton. Who are we talking with?
This is Emerson. She decided to just come run and jump in my lap right now, so she'll probably leave in a little bit.
The joys of parenting. Hi, Emerson. How are you?
Say hi.
Hi.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us, man. I know you know this, but I was in Europe last fall for a few months, and it is so hard to get your schedule straight, to figure out your times. And I know you've been there for a while now, over the last few years, so it's probably a lot easier for you. But to calibrate, like, okay, I can't do something at 7 p.m. their time because I'm supposed to be sleeping at that point. So I appreciate you juggling your schedule a little bit to get with me.
Oh, no problem. I understand the time difference well now.
Yeah, I'm sure. So before we get into it, I know that you had a little bit of a bout with COVID. I just want to make sure you're doing okay, and tell us what that experience was like for you.
Yeah, so I tested positive for COVID probably around 3 weeks ago, a day before my birthday actually, and it was weird. So I didn't know what was going on, didn't know what to really expect. I took the test early in the morning, and when I got home, I kind of felt weird, like my body, like my skin was real tingly. I didn't feel too well, and I was going to text the doctor, and he had called me right before I texted him, and he told me I was positive and highly contagious with COVID. And at this time, I was already with my family. We were all in the house together, so we were already going into quarantine because a couple other of our players had tested positive for COVID. So the government put the whole team in quarantine anyways. So it was tough. I'm doing a lot better now. I just was able to get cleared to play and to resume practicing. So, that's a blessing.
It sounds like, and obviously everyone has a different experience with it, but it sounds like, it's a real kick in the lungs, I guess. It sounds like it probably is going to, at least probably took a little while for you to feel even comfortable breathing like normal again.
Yeah, it was tough. I thought, I was going to be able to, work out while I had it. I hear a lot of people say they're asymptomatic. They don't have any symptoms, asymptomatic. And I was like, okay, well, I have a bike at home. I was just going to ride it. I was going to try to do some home workouts. And literally we had a heart monitor. I put the heart monitor on. It felt weird on my skin. I tried to ride the bike for like 5 minutes and I couldn't really breathe and was just having difficulty breathing and just felt really tired and fatigued. So I had to stop, just go and rest on the couch. And it's tough. It's tough to, breathe after it happens, for a couple of days. You just feel sick and you just feel weak. And that was kind of some of the things I experienced.
That's crazy. Well, for those who are listening, this is a professional athlete who is having to deal with this. So please take it seriously, especially around the holidays now. I can't believe we're still talking about this. It's like we came home, we were in Belgrade in February, and we basically were like, we are not going to be able to come back over here for a while. When we flew home in early March, the day after we got back was the Rudy Gobert microphone touching incident.
Yeah.
And, it's just been crazy. I talked to a lot of the guys who play in Milan, and they had an emergency hospital set up next to their apartment building and stuff in March and April. It's just been, what a year, especially in Europe, but it's just been an awful year.
Yeah, it's been crazy because you just don't know what's going on. You just don't know what's happening, how severe it can get. Obviously, you can die from it, but it's just so many question marks and so many unknowns. I just try to do whatever the doctors tell me to do and stay as safe as possible. I don't go out as much. I go to the gym pretty much and back home. You still want to live your life, but it's tough right now. You just try to stay safe as much as possible.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I want to make sure that I pump your podcast here. I've listened to a couple episodes. It's really good. Tony Gaffney is your co-host, former UMass player who's spent a long time playing in Europe. I know he was your teammate in Germany, but he's also played in Israel. It's called Ball Around the World. I want to make sure I get that right. Ball Around the World. So smash that subscribe button. It's good, man. How did that come up? How did you guys decide to start doing that?
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. But actually, Tony came up with the idea. He's just now finished with basketball, and he wanted to kind of start something different. He's always been interested in podcasts, and we've always had a close relationship. So he just asked me if I wanted to come on and co-host with them as part of the podcast, and I told him sure. For me, it was weird because it was something out of my element. I'm not used to doing that. Being an interviewer instead of an interviewee, and but it's been cool. It's been interesting. I've been enjoying it, and I'm glad people are able to enjoy some of the stories and like the content.
Yeah, well, I keep reminding people for my podcast, and I'll say the same for Peyton's. Make sure you rate and review it. That's how people can find these things on podcasting platforms. Tony's got that's my region, Massachusetts and Rhode Island. I grew up there. That dude's accent is so strong. Like you can hear it on just the simplest words. He's got such a strong accent.
For sure. No, he definitely reps it all the time.
I love it. Well, first of all, so you had Russ on recently, which is of course going to always be an entertaining conversation. You could talk to Russ about pretty much anything, and the dude is just, he's so smart, but he's so funny. What are, I guess, your favorite Russ stories that, like, you're at a party and someone says, "Hey man, tell me your favorite Russ Smith story." I mean, first of all, you'd be there for hours, but what would be your go-to?
Yeah, I mean, even like you said, I had the chance to get Russ on my podcast, and I definitely had to get him on. He's, one of my favorite people ever, and we literally could have talked for hours and hours at hand. But I always tell people I have so many stories about Russ. One of my favorite ones is, the first time I met Russ. We were driving home from practice. I had just picked him up. It was the summertime. He had just got on campus, and I told him I was speeding down Eastern Parkway, and it got pulled over, and Russ was sleeping in the passenger seat. And I told him, hey, I was going to wake him up and say, don't worry about it. We'll be okay. I was speeding a little bit, probably get a ticket. And Russ must have saw the lights in the rearview mirror and tried to jump out the car just because he just woke up out of nowhere and tried to jump out of the car. Like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And, and from that moment, I knew Russ was going to be an interesting guy ever since. And like you said, I have thousands of stories with just being with Russ for 3 years and knowing him for 7+. So I mean, almost 10. Yeah, actually, getting old, but plenty of stories about Russ. He's one of my favorite people ever. Really a person I can call my brother and my friend.
And he's got all these business ventures now. He's become like a multifaceted. He's a brand. He's a brand now.
He's the most interesting person you'll meet. He has his bourbon. It's coming out. He's into real estate. He has a movie. He has music that, he has an album out. He's producing albums. You name it, he's trying to do it. So he's, it's very good for him. He loves to stay busy, and that shows his character and who he is.
So it would have been the year after you graduated, the season after you graduated. Terry Rozier had a really good game as a freshman, and he was coming off the bench. He was like the 6th or 7th man, I think, at that point. And so mostly kind of having to be a floor manager type guy, and knew that Russ and Chris Jones, okay, they need to go. And especially Russ, he's got to get his, and, you can kind of space the floor and handle your business. And once Russ moves on, you'll probably move into more of that role, which we saw with Terry his sophomore year. But I'll never forget, he had a really good game. I don't know how impressive it was if he scored a bunch. I just remember everyone wanted to talk to him after the game. And I waited for the scrum of the cameras to leave his locker so that I could go sidle up next to him and talk to him. And I wanted to talk to him about his relationship with Russ. And he told me, like, the night before that game, that he had played really well, or he had been practicing really well, all this stuff. And Russ was like trying to take him under his wing. And so Russ's way of like communicating that to him and getting him to hang out with him, he wanted him to come to his dorm to watch Mortal Kombat at like 1 a.m. the night before a game. And Terry was like, dude, I've got to get, my 8 hours of sleep. I gotta be well rested. And Russ is like, no, you got to come watch Mortal Kombat.
No, Russ is a night owl. I told similar story on my podcast. I was talking about how Russ was the worst individual practice player, because we always had individuals at 8 a.m. Because Russ will go to the gym at 2 o'clock in the morning to go work out.
Yeah.
Because he will be playing NBA 2K until 1:30 and just like, I feel like going to work out. It's my time to go work out. And that's Russ. Russ, that's his character. And he's a very interesting guy, like I said. And I don't doubt that he wanted to watch Mortal Kombat. Russ is, a geek in that sense.
Yeah, he's got that New York in his blood. So tell me,
Sure.
So you've had now what has really become a very strong career in Europe. Your first year over there, though, you were in Italy first before you signed in Berlin. What was that first year like for you, and how did you, I guess, get through it? Because for so many guys, it really is just about getting through it and getting that experience.
For me, it was tough because I was in a small city in Italy. I was in Caserta, which there's not really a lot to do there. People don't really speak English, so the language barrier was really tough. But I was able to, first off, have some great teammates who helped me along the way. But also, I was able to meet, a couple people. I had just had my daughter. She was around 1, getting ready to turn 2 when I was out there, I believe. So we met another couple who had a daughter in a similar age, who she was from the States. Her husband was actually from Germany, but they lived in the same hotel that we did and was our next door neighbors. So they spoke Italian, so they were able to help us out with like going to the grocery store or ordering food. And then we met another couple on the Navy base who they had a daughter the same age, and that's why it's good to have kids in Europe, because you can have something to talk to other people about and meet people with. But, we were able to go on a Navy base and, go to the grocery store where they had American food, meet some Americans out there. But it was tough my first year just because I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. And, I dealt with some injuries, so it was tough with all of that. But all in all, it was a good experience for me because I learned the two sides of, playing basketball in Europe. Although I wasn't at the lowest level, it was still a rough transition for me.
Yeah. Well, what is there? I know the German league is really respected, and the development and the training process for players in Germany by people I've talked to in France and Spain. I mean, obviously the Spanish league is really good. The French league is getting better, but they all talk about Germany and the work that goes into those teams there. How is that culture different than the one you first experienced in Italian basketball?
Well, I would say obviously you have different levels of domestic leagues. Like you said, the Spanish league is probably one of the best. They would right now be the best domestic league. And, you have Turkey and Russia. And I would say Germany is all in that kind of tier. But the development stage is a lot different here in Germany than it was in Italy. I don't know, it probably just because of the team I was at, but, here at Alba, they run things similar to kind of like a college situation where they have some kids living in dormitories where they're able to practice all day, go to school, and then come right back and practice. It's not like AAU. They actually have guys where they're practicing on skill development, fundamental development. I wouldn't say they're, athletically, there's a big difference between the States and, I would say Germany, but I would say fundamentally, knowing the game of basketball, I think they teach a much better job in Europe than they do in the States in a sense. But I would say the development has been a real big key part where they've hired coaches specifically to develop the young kids, and you can kind of see it with the youth programs and the way they perform when they're going to play in other European competitions.
I don't want to stereotype because everybody's different, but I remember sitting next to a scout I think I was in Lyon, and they were playing, they may have been playing Bayern Munich. They were playing someone, and he was just saying the Germans teach their kids how to pass. Like they really teach their kids how to pass people open, space the floor. The big guys especially are really good passers. And as someone who is one of the best passers, both in college basketball history and now in Europe, I'm sure you appreciate that aspect of German basketball.
Yeah, I would say, like I said, they're very fundamentally sound. They try to make the right play. They get the stigma of being almost too robotic in a sense because they're very make the right pass, make the right play. And that's one of the things that German basketball is really known for, where that's why it's kind of fun. And a lot of the German national players who play on our team for Alba enjoy it because we have a Spanish coach who likes to play free.
Oh, yeah.
So, you kind of mix all those things together, and it's a fun style. But, yeah, I would say they focus a lot on the fundamental part of the game. And, like I said, a lot of times they're not as athletic as the kids from the States, and you kind of see it on the, the national level when they're playing at their age groups. But over time, you now see it on the world stage at the highest level where they're catching up. They're gaining the athleticism. They're, more fundamentally sound. And, you can see that when they're playing against like the USA and teams like that.
Absolutely. Well, I want to make sure that I paint this picture for people who are watching or listening to this. I saw you guys play Barcelona. Like, I think I had been in Europe for a week or 2 weeks or something like that. And I did not know what I was getting myself into. It was really intense. I guess I just didn't know. You just don't know what you don't know. I mean, you see stuff on video, whatever. And I mean, first of all, obviously when Barcelona's involved and it's EuroLeague and you guys, like, it's going to be a much higher level basketball than some farm league in Sweden. But like, the level of basketball was really good. It was cool seeing you and Kyle playing against each other, which I'm sure you guys enjoyed. But like, it actually does kind of have a college feel to it. Like, the fans are kind of on top of the court. It gets real intense in certain places. Belgrade Red Star is nuts. Yeah. Absolutely nuts. I know the Turkish teams and the Greek teams are pretty intense too. What has it been like for you playing over there and playing in those environments, and I guess adjusting to what life is like playing in European pro basketball from that standpoint?
It's a lot different, like you said, because you don't know what to expect. You can watch all the highlights and all the videos that you want until you actually are in an atmosphere. And I would say it's more similar to a college basketball atmosphere than it is to the NBA atmosphere, unless you're going to the playoffs. Like you said, every game, especially in EuroLeague, when the fans were allowed to come, they're hollering, they're, whistling at the refs, they're cheering. It can get very loud in those gyms. They're usually sold out, they're usually packed, especially depending on where you're going. They usually draw a great crowd. So the style of play is similar to college. It's a lot tougher, more physical, less space. You're allowed to stay in the key for 3 seconds, whereas the NBA, there's no 3 seconds in the key. I mean, there is 3 seconds in the key. You got to space out more. So it's a lot tougher, a lot harder, less time. But it's fun because the talent level is right there with the NBA. Especially in EuroLeague, it's literally, the second best league in the world, right under an NBA. And you see a lot of guys who go from EuroLeague to the NBA have great success. So it's a fun competition. I enjoy it. I enjoyed the fans when we were able to play in front of fans. Hopefully they'll be able to come back soon, but it's a great competition.
Yeah, absolutely. I think my two favorite experiences were both in Belgrade. One was Belgrade played Partizan, and I'm sure you've heard stories over the years. Mm-hmm. They only allowed one team's fan base in because they were so worried about craziness going on. And when the players walk off the court, and I don't know if they do this for you when you guys play there, they had like riot gear shields with the police walking the opposing players off the court, and people were throwing like coins and pens and stuff at them. And then when Pitino and his team Panathinaikos were in town playing Red Star at their bigger arena, there was like a haze of smoke at the top of the arena during the games. I mean, it was insane. Absolutely. I don't know. It's like a soccer game.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, when I played at Red Star and I walked into the gym, I could barely breathe just because I'm allergic to smoke, and, you can barely see past half court at some point. It's just, like you said, it's the haze, just fog, smoke. You just don't know what's going on. The fans are very passionate from ages 3 and up. we've had instances where they pull out the tunnel so we can walk under so no one hits us for throwing things. And, it can get pretty dangerous, but, I mean, those are just the passion of the fans. I mean, it's in their culture. That's how they are brought up. They're very passionate about their sports. They love it. And, don't win on the opposing court. They'll go crazy. And it's fun, though, as a player to compete in that type of atmosphere, and you just love to quiet down the fans or love to get them riled up, and it's a great time.
Yeah. I still can't believe some of the stories, and I don't know, because you were in Italy and Germany, maybe it hasn't been the same experience. I just know, like, if you talk to the Barron brothers, one of them had a coach who was selling meat out of the back of his car after practice that he had brought in from a farm. They had a goat sacrifice before a game. It's just so different than American culture. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. Have you had any, like, okay, yeah, I'm in Europe now, I'm not home experiences that you can point to from Italy or Germany?
I never had a goat sacrifice. So, no, I mean, not necessarily, from, experiencing something out of the ordinary, besides the throwing of, they'll throw lighters on the court, throw pennies on the court. Say if the ref calls a bad call or something, they'll start throwing things on the court. Seeing fire lit in the crowd is a big thing. Germany, is not bad. I would say they're more, peaceful in that sense, especially at our games. But when I was in Italy, we'll go to places where they'll be burning fire or waving their flag, especially if it's a rival game, and it can get pretty wild. I mean, we had one time where a player just didn't get along with the fans, one of our players, and said something in the media. Next thing you know, there's a mob of fans outside. We had an instance where, like, a mob of fans just came to our practice one day and stopped practice and had a talk with us because we was on a losing streak.
Oh,
I've seen some interesting things. Yeah, it's just – I mean, they're diehard faithful fans, and they feel like since they're putting their money into the program as far as buying tickets and everything, then they have feel they have a say so. So it's a different lifestyle out here.
Yeah, that's for sure. The lower bowl isn't the millionaires in the city. Those are a lot of people who just regular people are paying for their basketball real serious. I love how like in France, they have these marching bands that play before the game, and they shake hands with the fans after the game, and they walk around the court.
Mm-hmm.
Just so many small little traditions that make basketball feel a little bit closer to the community than – and I love the NBA, don't get me wrong, but, the NBA has definitely got that corporate feel to it because it's the best league in the world, and it's what you would expect. So I got to ask you we'll get into Louisville to finish this out, but real quick, a bunch of guys that you have played against were drafted, obviously varying levels from very high up in the draft to second-round picks. But your experience either playing against them in the German League and German Cups or playing in EuroLeague gives you a unique perspective on it. So I guess just real fast, what have been your impressions? We'll start with Avdija, Deni Avdija, the wing who's got a little flair to his game, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's played at Maccabi, and when he was there, you heard a lot about him. You heard a lot of rumbling about him. When we got a chance to play him, he got in towards the end of the game the first time we played him. And, we talked to the younger guys because they played him a lot more, especially at, when they were playing him on the European circuit, kind of like the AAU circuit with the national teams. They were like, this guy can score. He's averaging 30 points a game when he's playing at his age level. And so when we played him, he was more posting up. I don't think he was as confident in his shot, playing in a EuroLeague game as he was playing down low. But the second time we played him, he came out with more of a flair. That was towards the end of the season before coronavirus hit. He came out, shooting the ball very well. They had some injuries, and he was able to insert himself into the lineup and, feel more comfortable. So, and you saw that development start happening. And then once COVID hit and they were able to come back and play, he just kind of took over that team when they went back to the Israeli league, and he just played with that same confidence he was when he was playing with the lower team. He brought it up to the higher team, and he won the MVP of the season at the end, and he's playing very well.
Yeah, he's
strong
got
guy, can shoot the ball.
a lot of swagger to his game. Tell me about Killian Hayes. He played in Germany, so you probably saw him the most out of all of these guys, but what were your impressions of him?
He's a good player, man. He's tough to guard. There's a highlight going around on me when I fell guarding him. It was pretty funny, but he's very shifty, big body guard who's deceptive. He's not the fastest or quickest player, but he's able to change his pace really well. He worked on his jump shot. I would say the first game we just kind of went under a lot on him. He wasn't really making a lot of shots, but he was making some erratic passes where when they were connecting, they were hell of a passes, but when they weren't, they were all turnovers. Then when we played him the second time of the season, he seemed to calm down a lot more. He seemed to be more confident, and that's just with the being able to play more and more in the Euro Cup and in German league. He just felt more confident, developed really well. He started shooting the ball a lot better. He's able to create space really well, and his confidence level was through the roof. So I think in the NBA he'll be fine. I think he'll struggle a little bit with the longer shot, but he has a really good mid-range shot and really good finishing around the rim. And I think with the opening up of the NBA, he can do really well.
It is interesting. You hear more and more about the guys that they like in Europe these days have to be able to play one-on-one. They have to be good in space. They have to be able to do things with the ball because that's, like you said, that's so much of what the NBA is now with spacing and the way it's set up. So speaking of that, Leandro Bolmaro, did you ever get to play against him when he was at Barcelona?
I played him at the beginning of the year, but he didn't really play too much against us. And, I mean, from what I just remember about him, he was just a big guard. He was able to run the team, and that's all they really expected out of him. He wasn't able to do too much as far as creating, shooting. He was more out there, especially when you play for a team like Barcelona. You have $1 million guys right next to you. So he was just more out there to run the team, get guys in the right spot, and just be more of a, point guard leader out there, more of a floor general.
Yeah, it's got to be weird with some of the guys who are kind of B team fringe guys to getting picked. There's a kid from Serbia. I'm going to butcher his name, so I wrote it down. Pokuševski, who's on Olympiacos and was on the B team pretty much all year. So that it's just, I mean, that's what scouting is, I guess, as you go and find guys who you think can develop. The guy I really liked who kind of dropped farther than I thought he would was Theo Maledon in Lyon. You probably, I would think, have seen him the most playing against him the last couple of years. What did you think of his game and what he brings to the table?
So we've only actually played him once.
Oh, okay.
He was in the French league. So when we did get the chance to play him in the summer, what I remember about him was he's just a very long point guard. He played with a high intensity on the defensive end, which is really going to help him out, kind of establish a role in the NBA. And I just remember he's like a floor general also. He was quick, he was fast, able to create for himself. I don't remember – he didn't really take a lot of shots against us, so I don't really remember his, shooting ability. But, I remember he was a big-time guy to get in the lane, create for others, finish around the rim with floaters, either hand. And just remember how aggressive he was on defense, being just long arms and, pretty tall for a point guard.
Yeah. What a cool experience that you get to see. I mean, obviously playing in college, you would have the same experience with so many more guys, but it is cool to see the guys who, like, we have to go to Fran Fraschilla and Mike Schmitz to get the lowdown on these guys, and all about them. Last couple things then. One is you played, I assume, did you get a chance to play against Panathinaikos when Rick was there?
No, literally the game, we were in Cheska, getting ready to play Cheska, and our next game was going to be a home game against Panathinaikos, against Coach P. And unfortunately, that's right when they canceled the league with all the COVID cases coming out. And I had already set up a dinner, plans with Coach P to meet him and get a chance to sit down and talk to him. But then, unfortunately, the season was cut short, and I wasn't able to get a chance to play against him or play against their team.
I got to tell you, it was kind of fun watching him coach in Europe. Like, he was still kicking the stanchion or whatever you want to call it, where he's coaching. He still had the towel under his knee. He still had all the water bottles next to him. He was going absolutely berserk pretty much the whole game. But it's never at the refs or the other team. It's always at his own guys for missing a defensive assignment. That always seems to be his go-to calling card.
I was wishing that I could have been on the other end of him coaching, just so I can laugh at, because I already know all the tactics. I already know all the tricks. I just wanted to hear it from the opposing side. I only got the experience in the red and white game when he's coaching another team, but I wanted to kind of get the full effect of being on the opposite side and hearing him just yell and curse. Well, he says he doesn't curse, but yell at the players and see what he was actually like.
Do you remember his worst blow up at you? Do you in game or in a practice? Does that still stick out to you?
I mean, for my first 3 years there, it was a blow up every day in practice and every game. So everything just kind of funneled in one ear out the other. He loves telling me I had the plaque for most turnovers in a practice my freshman year. I went into – they started pressing, and they had Edgar Sosa, Jerry Smith, Reggie Delk, Samardo on the back line, and Jared Swabshire on the wings, and they would just love to press me and then sub out Edgar Sosa for pressing nose, and then they would just beat up on me, and I would just throw the ball all around the court. I didn't know how to handle that pressure. I didn't know how to figure out that press at the time, and so he loves to always tell other freshmen or other incoming players, well, Peyton has the plaque for most turnovers ever in practice. So, I just kind of live with it. But no, I've had a couple times where he blew up on me. I remember one time I had made a layup. It was against DePaul. I got a steal. It was a fast break with me and Kevin Ware, and I could have passed it to Kevin Ware, but I tried to do a 360 and slipped. And I did the 360. I wanted to dunk it, but I had slipped and messed up my footing, but I laid it up. And he was like, "You did all that for a fucking layup?" And I was just like, he got on me for that. And, it's one of the stupid, more selfish plays I've had when I was at U of L, but, I always remember that.
That sounds about right. That sounds about on brand with Rick. He was so funny, man. He was like making jokes at the press conference afterward, and he's laughing at himself and waiting for the translator to translate it into Serbian. And so 30 seconds later, the guys in the press room started giggling at what he had said 30 seconds earlier. And he was so happy with himself with this joke. But yeah, just – it's crazy, but I do think it's good to see him back in college basketball. It just feels like that's where he belongs.
No, I was so happy to see him back in college basketball. It would have been great to, possibly play for him again in professional or play against him professionally. But, college is where his heart is. College is where his passion is. And I'm glad to see him back to get the opportunity to coach those young guys and teach them and help them grow into men.
Are you planning on watching any Louisville and Iona games this year? What's your – obviously the games being at 7 or 9 have to kill you, but how much do you get to watch college hoops in general?
I don't really get to watch a lot. I get to watch every now and then when the game's like on a Saturday or Sunday when it's an early game, and Sunday at 1 o'clock where it's, 7 o'clock my time and I'm able to catch it. I try to catch up with the highlights or, look at the box scores or anything in that sense, but I'm gonna try to do a better job this year of just trying to follow. I have it on my ESPN, my favorites. I follow Coach Keats. I follow, Little Richard Pitino. I have Coach P. Always Louisville. Just try to follow those guys and see what they're doing, and just try to keep up with them as best way as I can.
Yeah, it's tough, man. This has to be killing you with the Seahawks. They're having a great year, and it's like 15 hours behind. I mean, it's like
No,
another planet.
I stay up for my Seahawks games.
Okay, good.
It's one. That's more so because I'm a big fantasy football guy. So
Okay.
So I'm up watching football anyway, and but always. This year though, I've kind of scaled back, and once that 12 o'clock hits, I go to sleep and just try to wake up and see what happens afterwards. But previous years I would stay up until 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, finishing a Seahawks game, or trying to stay up for the primetime game, which is a killer. But that's when my family wasn't here. Now my family's here. I have to get to bed on time.
Yeah, that's a whole different ball game. Absolutely. Fantasy, man. Fantasy will kill your schedule. It just eats your whole day up. Oh, my God.
Oh, my wife hates it. Every Sunday she's like, oh, it must be fantasy day. So I'm just constantly on my phone, waiver wire, who's hurt, who's questionable, all day.
Yeah, just getting crushed. I had to drop out of like 3 of my leagues because of the same reason. So I feel you on that. Well, this is Peyton Siva. Peyton, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. I know you're a busy guy. You got kids rumbling around back there. But thank you so much for your time, as always. I always love chatting with you, and I'm sure people will be happy to hear that you're doing well and you're healthy again, and best of luck to you this season.
Thank you, man. Thanks for having me on. It's good to see you again.